Today's video is going to be tips on how to be successful in public land. And it's mostly for like newer hunters, or maybe you've been hunting for a year, 2 years, been picking up on a couple things, watching videos. Stuff's just not really working out for you. My rooster over there crowing. But what I'm going to do today is give you 3 or 4 tips that's going to make you successful on public land. You're going to see more deer. Hopefully you'll see more deer. And it'll just put you in a mindset to position yourself to, see a lot more deer and get a lot more activity and get a little bit more experience than you normally would if you were just doing kind of what you've been doing. I don't know what you've been doing. Maybe it's been working for you. Maybe you're here looking for the ultimate tip to get you on a big buck. That ain't what this is for. What this is for is to, let me get away from this joker. He's just cock-a-doodling like crazy. What this is really for is just to kind of give you a new perspective on things. And I mean, it's all pretty much the same stuff that any other successful hunter already knows. But if you stumbled across this page, that's what we're here to do. We're here to, share all of our experiences with you guys and pass on some tips and some things and just show you that it can be done by the average guy. All right, so first thing we're going to do is talk about location. What we're going to do is use this little section of my yard as an example, okay? We're going to say you got this tree line right here, and on the far side of this tree line, about 100, 200 yards back, is your access road. You got this little clear cut that the Department of Forestry just did. They came in, they cut a bunch of pines and stuff, and you got a nice lone oak tree out here, another little oak tree, and a little patch of oak trees back there, this whole line of woods. And on your trail camera, this big old stud right here has been coming in. All right, and he's just rolling through here, rolling right on along this tree line, and he just zigzags in and out of it, and he comes right here. It's an ideal spot. You got deer tracks all along the edge here. You've got scrapes underneath this branch, and these little trees are just rubbed up to no end. Right, perfect setup. You come on out here as a new hunter. Obviously you don't have a lot of options for trees, this little oak tree, but it's one of them spots that you want to hunt. So some of the options you got are ladder stands, lock-on stands, and climbers and stuff like that. Well, if you look, just got a lot of oak trees, skinny pine. That's a decent pine tree right there, and that's a pretty decent pine tree right there. You might have to cut some branches or something, but this looks probably like a ladder stand or a lock-on stand kind of setup. So you can hang your lock-on stand up there. You can hunt from the saddle up there. Maybe get a climber up on one of them pines. But for the most part, a new hunter, you're probably going to be in a ladder stand or like a Summit Viper or something like that. All the normal stuff that, a new hunter would probably try to get his hands on. Lightning's crackling pretty good over there. All right, so with that being said, you come out here and whatever setup you set up in, and there's no deer, or you're just not seeing anything at all. Maybe you're in a management area where you can only shoot bucks, no does, and there's just a couple of does rolling through, but no bucks. Or if you do see a buck, you always just catch little glimpses of them out here in the thicket. Well, you only got this one spot set up over here, so obviously your options are limited. You have to be able to, in my opinion, move around and be mobile. Because if you sit in the same spot, yeah, there's a possibility that you're going to probably see a buck at some point, and maybe even see the target buck that you've been waiting for, old big old stud over here. But that's not always going to be the case, and you're going to find yourself sitting in a stand, which I have done, same stand, you're going to burn that place out. And you're not going to be able to sit it as often as you want because of the wind factor, which is something that we'll also talk about. So just keep in mind, you can always move your ladder stand or your lock-on stand. You can hunt from the ground. Doesn't always work very good down in the deep south because the foliage is so thick you can't really see. I mean you're just looking through here. I wouldn't be able to shoot more than 40, 50 yards max. Like maybe 50 yards that way, and 40 yards that way, and like 30 yards that way. So, but then up here on this little crest of the hill, That's probably about 45, 50 yards maybe. So, I mean, you're very limited when you're on the ground, but it's something that you can do and it is an option. So, my first bit of advice to a new hunter would be mobile, move around. Um, just because you have deer on camera doesn't mean that they're not, moving around in the area, but taking different tracks to get to generally the same location to feed, whether it's, browse that they're looking for or cover that they're using or a water source or something like that. So, moving around and bouncing around within, that general area that you want to hunt. Granted, you need cover and you need the wind to be in your favor. Um, but just being able to move around gives you a whole different vantage point. And you can sit up in that old tree stand spot or that lock on spot that you set up that was just perfect and not see anything, but then move 50, 60, 100 yards in a different direction, or where you've been catching glimpses of deer, and all of a sudden, boom, you're on them and you're just seeing droves of deer. So the first piece of advice is be mobile, move around, be versatile. Okay, be able to get down on the ground, do a spot and stalk, move your lock on stand or your climber, and just have different options available to you. Do not sit the same spot over and over and over again. All right. That's probably my number one piece of advice, especially on public land, because those deer on public land are going to get super, super pressured. And you might have 100 yards down the road or 200 yards down the road this way, and they've just been blowing the deer out. Not an experienced hunter, or maybe they made a mistake or something like that, or they hunted a bad wind, or whatever the case may be. And now all of a sudden your deer that were coming through here were originally coming from 100 yards down that way or 200 yards down that way, and them hunters have blown them deer out or made some mistakes, and now the deer push back deeper into the woods, and you're just not seeing them anymore. So move that 100 yards after, I would say, the first day. If you're not seeing anything, move back, move out, move some direction to where you can kind of get a different vantage point and see what's going on. And you might actually find that you run into a better spot or find more tracks or super acorn producing trees or something like that. Like, you get into this area and it looks really super good, and then you got to move, and then as you do move, you come over here to like this patch of oaks over here, and it's just acorns dropping like crazy, and you're along a tree line, a tree edge or something, a transition point between a clear cut like this and a tree line, and the tracks are just everywhere, just droves of them. So hopefully I'm holding the camera in a way that allows you to kind of see, just to give you kind of a perspective, something to kind of use as a reference point. So just keep that in mind. Move. Do not sit the same spot. Next thing we're going to talk about is the wind. You have to hunt the wind. The wind is such an important factor in deer hunting. Think of deer in regards to smell like a dog. Deer and dogs have very similar senses in regards to smell, and they what's the right way to say it? The right way to say it would be that's how they recognize things. Like, that's how their whole thing is focus is on scent and sight. Dogs hunt by sight, deer hunt by sight. They see very similarly, not the same, because I know there's going to be a bunch of keyboard warriors out there that try to hammer me for that, but it's very similar in nature, the two animals. The only major difference I would say really is that one's predator, one's prey. But dogs and deer have a super keen ability in regards to scent, and that is how they do everything. One's how they hunt, the other one's how they survive. So let's talk about that a little bit. All right, so it's opening day, or opening day for rifle. Most of you new hunters, or maybe you're bow hunting, you're probably more than likely going to be doing some rifle hunting, or maybe some muzzleloader hunting. But it's opening day, and you're out there on your access road, getting ready to walk through this big thick stuff to come to your super awesome deer hunting spot where old big boy here has been coming through every day, and the wind is blowing in your face back towards your parking spot. Now your big buck's been walking along this tree line here, all right, and he cuts on up through here. It kind of goes up this little uphill area and meanders off back into the wild blue yonder. Well, it's a great spot for an approach because the wind's blowing right at your face, right? But as you come weaseling your way in here and you get up in your super awesome rub tree with your lock-on stand up there, or your saddle system, or whatever it is you're using, and now your wind's blowing back that direction along that path of travel where that buck's going to be walking. Now, in the morning, if you haven't researched enough on wind and thermals and stuff like that, in the morning, your scent's going to be rising, depending on what the temperature is. Down here in the deep south, about 77 degrees in the morning is about average for archery season. And then when you get into the later months, sometimes it's cold, but during rifle and muzzleloader season, it's about the same temperature. But when that temperature is gradually rising in the morning, your scent's just going to be going up in the air, 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 and it will blow over this path of travel that the buck's taken. Now, not a bad setup, all right? Not the greatest, because this buck is going to walk over your ground scent, and there is still a possibility of some lingering scent kind of drifting down that way. So you need to be cognizant of what the wind is doing, and you need to work and play the wind. So now let's say that this block of land right here has the access road that way and an access road running this way, kind of paralleling this fence line right here. Well, that wind blowing directly in your face, might be wise to try to see if you can get access from this side over here, this other access road. Because what you can do then at that point is you can come in from that side piece, keep your, that side road, and keep your ground scent off of this buck's main trail, or even park farther down and come in from the backside. Your scent's still going to be blowing over this spot. But you know, you need to take into consideration your scent's still going to be blowing in the direction of the deer. So another good option would be to pull your stuff or hunt from the ground or move your setup and get farther back into the woods so that you're still within range of this transition edge where the buck travels, so that your scent's still blowing back towards your parking spot. And when the deer comes through, your scent's still blowing that way and it never crosses his path. Now, is that easy to predict? No, it's not easy to predict, because deer always just kind of do what they want. They go with usually the least path of travel and or the most cover, and they're on a mission, man. They're going to and from bedding areas, to and from feeding areas. And those morning travel routes usually is a buck, if it's not rut, usually is a buck going back to his bedding area. So that's another thing that you need to pay attention to when you're in the woods. Watch out for your wind. And when you see a buck cruising in the morning, if he's out of range and you need to go back to that very first rule, that versatile kind of be mobile mindset, wherever that buck is going, there's probably a good chance he's heading to bedding or some kind of major water or food source, and he's not going to be too far from it. So now you've taken into consideration your ability to be mobile. You're using the wind to your advantage, and you see the buck, you know, move through the area that you want to hunt. He's out of range, you don't get a good shot on him. Well, now you need to take those two factors and put them into play. Be mobile, move, get a little bit closer to that bedding area, maybe do some investigating, see if he's, you know, there's more sign over there or something like that. Got to be careful though, because you don't want to jump him. But just definitely take it into consideration, the ability to be mobile and the wind. And like I said, you're not going to always be able to predict the wind, especially down here in the south. In Florida, since we're on a peninsula, we've got multiple different winds just hitting us all day long. We got all this stuff from the north blowing to the south, the warm Caribbean stuff blowing up off into the Gulf, usually rolls off of Cuba into the onto the west coast of Florida, and it just creates a swirling effect nonstop. The wind generally does not do the same thing throughout the day for more than 2 hours. It's constantly shifting and changing. So if you're hunting down in the deep south, you need to take consideration of the wind, and use it to your advantage. Now, talking about the wind and ground scent and your scent and stuff, I want to tackle a really big thing that I think a lot of new hunters do, and that is cover scent. I'm going to highly recommend that you don't spend any money at all on cover scent. I've been in the woods right after work, stinking to high heaven, nasty, with a good wind in my favor, blowing my scent back away from the deer's path of travel, and multiple deer and small bucks just hanging around, not doing anything, not even noticing that I'm even there, and just totally ninja, you know what I mean? So, and then I've also had a similar situation where the wind shifted, and I watched it shift and just blew my scent right towards those deer with just a mountain of scent control on, and it just blew the deer out of there. So use the wind to your favor. Do your research in regards to your hunting area. So when you're trying to figure out, like, in this little zone, this little awesome little spread with old big buck here and all these rubs and signs and acorns and stuff, how can you be mobile? Where are different points that you can hunt from or try to hunt from? And definitely use the wind to your advantage. All right, now, if you're a first-time hunter or first or second season hunter and you're bow hunting, what you've probably been doing is practicing on a target, something like this here, all right? You got your target right there. You're on nice flat ground like this, and you're just standing here, you know, drawing your bow, shooting from a standing position right at your deer or your target or whatever. And that's how you've been practicing. For new bow hunters, and I have a video on this about practice. It's called Practice Makes Perfect, and it's a you know, how to prep for archery season video. What I like to do is I'll get my bow dialed in, make sure that my grouping's good, just on some flat ground, just like this, you know. Well, I got my 3D target there. My other target's somewhere over there. The kids took it. And once I get dialed in with it, I'll start doing things like I'll come over here by these oak trees like this. Okay, so you got all this thick stuff in here and a couple little, see them little windows down in there. And I'll move the targets and position them so that I can take shots at them, so I'm not shooting arrows off into the backside of the property. But I'll set this stuff up and I'll shoot through these trees. See, I got low-hanging branches right here and a small little window. And then another thing I'll do is through this small window right here. And I'll just start taking shots that force me to shoot through smaller windows with distractions and things around. And I'll bring some chairs over here and stuff, and I'll set a chair down like in here I'll have the, you know, I'll have the tree on one side, the bushes on the other. You can see I got that little scrub oak right in there. So I'll move the target off to the side, which just really gives you just a small, tight, tiny window from a sitting position. Shoot from a sitting position, shoot from a kneeling position, hug up against these trees like this, you know, like up in here, like that, like I'm doing a spot and stalk or something. And I'll have my target over there. That light is getting close. And I'll shoot at the target from something like that, where I got to draw with a tree right here. Right? See, you're holding your bow like this, and I mean, your frame and everything's just hitting all this stuff. So it'll help you practice drawing your bow, keeping it steady, and making sure that you're not smacking stuff, making noise. And it just helps you be a better bow hunter. The other thing I'll do is take like my saddle system or something like that. I'll rig it up on a little tree like this, okay, just like that, and I'll get 10 feet up in the air and I'll shoot at my target from a position like I would actually be hunting. I have a couple other trees over here in the yard that I can set up like a climber or something. I'll shoot from those positions as well. And what that does is it helps you build your confidence, and it helps you get the experience shooting in like complex situations. Because you got to remember, this is real life, okay? This ain't a hunting show where there's a corn pile or something like that there, where the deer are definitely going to stop or do stop, and you've taken, you know, years getting this spot set up or this area set up. This is public land. You can't cut branches down. You can't do a lot of different stuff in certain places, and you've really got to hunt the area that you pick, and that's just it. And if you don't have great windows or vantage points, you're going to have to make it work when that deer passes through those small openings. So getting that experience and building that confidence is going to make you a better bow hunter. Now, if you've got property where you can, you know, shoot archery stuff, awesome. If you can't, you can go to certain archery ranges and stuff like that. Hopefully there's places like that where y'all live. But just getting that confidence with that bow and knowing that you can shoot in many different kind of situations and environments is really great for a first-time bow hunter. Now, when it comes to rifle shooting, I mean, more than likely you've been going to the local range shooting paper targets from 50, 100 yards, and that's great. If you can find a place where you can do similar style shooting with like a, you know, like a tactical range or something like that, where you've got windows that you can shoot through or sandbags or something like that, just a multifaceted kind of, if that's the right way to phrase it, just an environment where you can shoot in different kind of ways. If you can find a place like that, great. That'll really help you hone your rifle skills. If you can't find a place like that, just ask the instructors or the, you know, the security guys at whatever range you're shooting on if you can take shots from the kneeling. You're probably going to take shots mostly from the sitting, but also if you can shoot standing up, because shooting standing up is a whole different ball game. When you got a deer that's moving fast through some thicket and you're holding that rifle, waiting for him to get through it and get into that opening, and then you take a shot and it's heavy, your shoulder's kind of hurting a little bit, and you got to shoot through a really small window. The good thing about a rifle is, unlike an arrow, the bullet doesn't generally get deflected much when you're shooting through some foliage. You know what I mean? An arrow hits some foliage or a limb or stuff like this. This old weed stuff here, it's gone. It's off into the breeze. So build the confidence in the system that you're using, so that when the time comes, excuse me, when the time comes to seal the deal, you're ready, you're prepared, you've taken every precaution necessary, you've given yourself as much experience as you can, and when you're out there and that situation comes where the deer stops and the only window you got is a small hole with limbs and stuff everywhere and the wind's blowing slightly and you're just watching that branch kind of bob up and down, and that's the window you got to shoot through, now you're ready to shoot through it because you've been practicing. Look at this joker. He looked like he'd been fighting. He'd been fighting. That's my brother's shot, by the way. So that's going to be my third piece of advice is practice with your equipment. Get confident in it so that when the moment comes to seal the deal, you have given yourself every opportunity to prepare for every situation possible. Now keep in mind, it's the woods, so the woods does weird things. All right. Sometimes deer doesn't present you that perfect broadside shot. Sometimes he's, quartered to or quartered away, and you got to take that stuff into consideration. There's plenty of videos out there about how to shoot a deer based off certain angles. I recommend that you go watch them and just educate yourself as much as possible. All right, you guys, that's going to conclude this video. Hopefully it was informative enough and I wasn't rambling too much in it. I tried to edit out all the nonsensical stuff that I do tend to talk about from time to time. Our hope is that, you take a little something away from the video, and that it helps you get closer to a buck or, be more successful in the woods just in general. So we appreciate you guys tuning in. Hopefully it was helpful stuff if you didn't already know it. And we appreciate your time and appreciate you watching it. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, give us a like, comment, add your 2 cents. We appreciate any feedback, and just want you guys to have a successful and a safe season out there in the woods. So, God bless y'all, and see you out there.